Hey everybody, it's Book of Katherine. It's kind of late at night. It's like 3 a.m. But I was watching some Jordan Peterson while hanging my closet finally. And he talked about seeking the truth in conversation together. And it really made me think of something interesting that I thought you guys might be interested in. We'll see. I can't think of a type of person that I haven't been able to talk with and have a conversation with. Let me give you an example. I remember when I was called into jury duty in California, and they cleared everyone out. Like, they called my section and said that I was done, and everyone like cleared out and got their check-in number, and then they had to actually call my name and get me to go check out of jury duty, to actually leave the room. They actually had to call my name on the loudspeaker. And why is that? Was I in the hallway? Like everybody was staying in the hallway? No, I ended up talking with a bunch of people. And granted, that's part of it because I'm an extrovert or whatever. But there are two ways to have a conversation. There are people that I am willing to conversate with, and there are people that I'm not willing to conversate with. He talks about always telling the truth, and he's right. I really have learned that it's just better to be honest and face the truth, and that does bring conflict. It does bring conflict, but the thing is that it betters your life in the long run. You don't have to tell everything, though. That was a big skill that I had to learn, was that you don't have to say everything. You can have walls up and you can tell the truth, but not say everything you're thinking, not say everything that's on your mind. You listen and then you share the truth as much as you feel is safe. But if you go towards a conversation as seeking the truth together, I just remember in California, like, it didn't matter where I traveled. If I was getting my nails done, I could have a conversation with the person. If it didn't matter where I went, I could have a conversation with the person. And like, I ended up just talking to a group of people in this jury duty thing, and I actually didn't want to go. I was like, oh shoot, they're calling my name, and I kind of got upset because I was really enjoying talking with people. Like, one guy ended up being like, some kind of mayor or something like that, and another guy ended up being, and there was some women, and we were just all talking in a row, but I was sitting in the middle and then talking to people on the left and the right. But I'm curious, and that is what's really interesting as Peterson talks about this. He says you can always learn something from somebody. And I always want to know what I can learn from people. Like, I'm always curious about people. I know they have their own stories. I know they have their own... when I meet somebody, I'm like, they have a wealth of knowledge that I don't know. They have a wealth of experience. They've interacted with peoples, with industries, with things. People are so interesting. And, I've really traveled quite extensively all over the United States and quite a number of countries, actually. And there is a type of person that, we can't, I say we because we're so together, but that I don't talk to. There's definitely people that I just I avoid. Like, to the point, there are some people, there's this range. And actually, now that I think of it, In Sheep's Clothing talks about this. It says that the neuroses thing, and they said people range from being neurotic, like highly careful about their actions, like neurotic, like super detailed and super constrained and super worried about everything they say. And you guys know people like that. You guys know people that you can give them a compliment and they will find something that you said, wrong. They'll think you were saying something bad. They'll turn it on themselves and they get super nervous about themselves. And you realize, like, there's really no way to interact with this person and have it be positive because they're so neurotic. They're so, like, uptight and wound tight. And then there's the other range where you go to the other side of the spectrum where there is no self-restraint whatsoever. None whatsoever. They don't care about anyone. They don't care about anything. And laws don't mean a frickin' thing to them. and the world. And that's usually when you get into the narcissism and antisocial behavior. There's no empathy and things like that. But he says, like, we don't even go far enough. Like, there's people who are really at the end of the spectrum. But he says, when you get a little bit closer in, he says there's a whole range of people who are okay with lying, who don't see, like, it's kind of like by any means necessary. They are willing to do what it takes to put their needs first, and that there really aren't any boundaries. And he was saying a healthy person's in the middle, like when you know where your boundaries are. And it's a swing. Some people are highly neurotic. They swing back to the other way and they go super, super self-protective and then they eventually go back to the middle. But it's very hard to get people who are already on the other end, to ever think there's anything wrong with themselves. And that's the type of person I found that I can't have a conversation with. And I'm realizing from what Peterson's saying is that, yeah, they're not interested in talking with me to seek out truth. Like, what is the truth when we have a conversation? When you get into that neurotics, or not the other side, when you get into the side where the anti-personality and the narcissism, what you have to understand with those people is that it's not that they're all about me, 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 me. It's that they don't see you as a human being at all. At all. What they see you as is a tool to be used to their own gain. And I know we talk about things like gray rock method and things like that. And people are like, I don't want to go flat. I don't want to do. And I'm like, no, it's actually very empowering to just like not give any of your light, because they will go towards people who are bright and shining, because that means they have a lot of energy that they can use. You have a lot of talents. You sit there to people who are like narcissists and antisocial, especially narcissists truly use the people around them to their own benefit. They see them as extensions of themselves to raise their way up in the hierarchy or whatever and get what they need and get what they want. And the thing is that when you get with a person like that, they'll walk into the room and they will see you and they will immediately be attracted to you. Like, they will go towards you if you have light, if you shine at all, or if you're extremely talented. They will immediately be drawn to you. They will go and try to attach themselves to you, and then they will start stealing your ideas. They'll put you down, but also know how to hack your brain and get all your ideas. So they make you feel like crap so that they push you down, but then they use all of your light and energy. And that's when you see these guys getting together with these girls on these shows, and the daughter was like the head cheerleader and all these things, and then they get with an abusive boyfriend and they look like shells of human beings. And it's just like straight out of the Dark Crystal. Like she just sat in this thing and the Dark Crystal like sucked her of all of her life. And that's exactly what they do. They see you and they suck all of your life. And gray rock method literally just means, you don't shine. You don't shine bright. When they come by, a gray rock means there's nothing for you. There's nothing for them to put their claws into. And so I just don't shine. You know what I mean? I just kind of just go, I just go bland. I turn off all my light because I know whatever I do, whatever I say, whatever kind of light I give off or whatever, I know that they are going to use it they're going to hurt my reputation. They're going to use whatever I say, and then they're going to twist it to other people, and they're going to say things about me to other people. And so those people, I don't even bother conversating with them. It's like there are some people where you're just like, they're not interested in seeking the truth with you. And when you start to notice those sorts of things, it gets a lot easier on like who to talk to, who to hang out with, who's on your team, who isn't on your team. And if they're not on your team, and there are some people, like obviously when you're talking with strangers, there are people who are like-minded. And that's what I mean is that I've met people in all ranges of work. There is no area of work that not one industry have I found where I have not been able to sit there and have a 2.5-hour conversation with. But part of that is because I'm just like, I'm curious where you want to go. Where do you want to go? I'll follow where you go. What do you think? Oh, that's interesting. I thought this. What do you tell me? Take me on an adventure. Let's go on an adventure together and discover things together. And when you approach it that way, life can become very, very interesting and very fun and very fascinating. And it fills you up and you end up walking with body of knowledge. But it's very, very important to know who are like, I don't know if you want to call it light stealers or whatever, but when it's people that have no self-restraint whatsoever, when there are boundaries and they have no problem breaking them, and they always have a good excuses why, but every person will get a different excuse. You know, those people, they're not really worth your time, because you will, even if you think like, oh, I'm not really telling them anything, like I can kind of hang out with them and not give them anything, you have no idea. Like, you have no idea what you're playing with. You have no idea that flame. You have no idea how good they are at what they do. Because if they get close to you, like if you're in a workplace and you have a person like that, they get close to you, and because they're even in your orbit, then you're physically, by being in their orbit, you're telling your friends around you that that person is okay with you, right? And then they think it's safe to hang out with that person, and they will take your friends and they'll eventually draw them away and act like, you know, and they'll cut you out. Like, you have no idea what they will do behind your back. It is not safe. It is not safe. It is not safe. So it's really important to know, like, safe people. That's why safe people is actually on my reading list, safe people. And I warning, it's a faith book. I've listed a bunch of faith books and stuff that it's important to read if you're interested in reading, but to be educated, everything from OT3, you know, to the Quran, things like that. But safe people is a really good thing about just like knowing applying the boundaries book and knowing who it's safe to talk to and who it's not safe to talk to, and who's gonna. You have to be aware, like, when you start going around and actually feeling free to talk to people, if you have to sit next to a person in a flight, I'm always amazed at what I can learn. And sometimes they're quiet or whatever, but if they have a book that they're reading or something like that, or a magazine, and I'll see it and I'll just be like, you know, I love that, or that's interesting. And if they are interested in a conversation, they'll be like, yeah, and they'll throw something back, and then you begin lobbing. And if they're not interested, they'll just be like, thank you, and then they'll just continue on, and you respect that boundary. But sometimes you just got to let people know that you're okay with talking. You're interested in them, or you have something in common. And then those things, like, I'll never forget, I met a lady from NPR on some trip on some ferry, on one of the ferries I've taken, in all the freaking ferries that I've taken. I think this one was the Outer Banks. And it was a huge ride. And I was doing this ferry thing, and she was like, my husband, I don't know, I just ended up and it turned out that she had just been to a few states that we'd been to. And she was talking to people and interviewing people of a certain age group. And I was thinking about writing at the time. And she talked to me, and I said, but I'm afraid of getting it wrong. And she said, you have to understand with writing, like, you know, you're going to get it wrong. And you can always, you know, change the book or restate your opinion. You always have like an option of like redoing it. And she was right. Like, you as an author, you continue to read. And there was never going to get a point where I knew everything on a subject. It was never going to happen. I was never going to get everything right. It's not like a freaking scriptural text or something for some religion. She's like, the living word is like breathing. And it was amazing. And we're nowhere near the same age. But I was just like, do you understand like kind of what wealth I gained after that? Because I started writing the book just a couple months after that. That's an important thing, because I was willing to talk to somebody and know that they had something to share. And she even knew by talking to me that I was from California. She knew the accent. And we Californians always say we don't have an accent. But she was like, oh, you're from California, huh? And I was just like, wow, you're on it. It was great. And I felt it was just, you'd be amazed at the like minds that you run into. But also one of my favorite conversations that I ever had, it was before my wedding, and I was talking to the lady who was doing my pedicure, and we just like talked and talked. I always looked forward to going to her, and she just had the most amazing story about like immigrating and her family and this and that and all of her background, and I learned so much. And I didn't want to leave. Like, I was just like, that was so amazing. And so I always looked forward to going back to her, because we would talk and talk and talk. And if you are interested in talking and seeking truth or being on the adventure of finding out what you do have in common or what they do know that you don't know or whatever. And maybe it's just that I love people. I love individuals so much. But you can really enjoy life if you're interested in talking to people. And I've really learned that if you're not an extrovert or whatever, that doesn't have to stay that way. I mean, I didn't start out this way. My family, my husband, not my husband, great Freudian slip here. But because I was going to say both. My father, when I was at the dinner table, if I talked or if I spoke, he said, no man's ever going to want to marry you. He was just like, no man is ever going to want to marry you if you talk. You know, you have so much to say, no man's ever going to marry you. You know, just be quiet already. And do you know when I met my husband? He was like, can you just talk? Can you just talk? Like, can you just talk? And if we ever got in a fight in the beginning, I get quiet, and he hated that. He really hated when I didn't. He really, really helped me blossom and be okay, go the opposite direction than what my family beat out of me, because my mother said the same thing. She even said when I was dating him, she was just like, you're going to lose him. You're going to lose him, when I'd be like shining like the star because he made me so happy. And she was just like, no, you're going to lose. And it was such a dramatic, it really put my family, it was, you know, starting of a red flag or whatever. And I think that it's just, talking with people is such a good thing. Talking is a good thing. We're in a democracy. Talking is so important in a democracy. It's what we're supposed to do, is talk with each other. And if you're an introvert, like I was a big introvert, I just like, my parents like beat it out of me or whatever. Like they really, really made me feel a lot of shame for it. So I really never spoke, and I had to learn to like become more and more an extrovert. You know what I mean? I was naturally that, which was so hard. But I also know that like my husband was super big introvert, and I just would listen. I would listen and listen and listen. And now he just can talk and talk and talk to, he's the weirdest guy in the whole science industry, because he just sticks out because he can talk and talk and talk. But that's because, you know, I gave him a safe place to talk. And he still ranks, when you do the Myers-Briggs, he still ranks as an introvert. Absolutely. But that's my point, I guess, is that you don't have, if you're an introvert, it doesn't mean you can't talk with people and learn from them. You absolutely do have a skill set. It's a skill set, and you can learn it, and it's important for networking. But also know who you shouldn't talk with. I mean, you can, but start being really aware of like when it's worth it and when it's not, because what you have inside of you is very, very precious. Every single person has an individual light. And when you talk with people, ask yourself, when I talk with them, are they giving this light oxygen, or are they snuffing it out? If they're snuffing it out, if you feel any kind of contraction, there's somebody that you can just, you know, if you have to be in a room with them, you listen and you don't say anything. You know, there are rare times when you have to fight your way to the top of the hierarchy and stuff. And I've been in situations like that. And nice girls get the corner office 101 help with that tremendously, and taught me how to be strong, and have like taught me so much about like how to act in the professional environment, and how to, you know, fight for myself and fight and see. It teaches you what's going on in the battlefield that you don't notice as a woman, you know, because we're always worrying about ourselves, you know, and so we don't look around ourselves and see what the other people are doing, and they're willing to do things that a lot of us aren't. And no wonder why, like, the media makes us so self-conscious about everything. I can't imagine why. You know what I mean? All these women think that they have to be skinny and heroin chic. Even today, they've got bones sticking out of all the models, when the guys actually like the girls to have some kind of a curve on them. You know, if they don't want, like, for example, I was just talking to some of my people, and I was saying, you know, that the fashion runway models, like, they make them that thin because the clothing, the fabric's so expensive. They've done the Wall Street thing, where the Wall Street investment in these fashion houses, And so it's cheaper to make less fabric. And so they do the sample sizes so that it looks good on a hanger. I mean, they sell fashion so different. Anyway, I'm getting off on another thing. So talk to people, and it's a skill set that everyone can learn, even introverts. And I've seen it, and it's worth it, and it enriches your life in the most amazing ways. But really be like, okay, if I'm growing a tree of self-confidence, or if I'm growing my career, you know, when I talk with another person, am I watering that tree? Or, you know, and am I watering theirs? Like, are you being, a good conversation means you're actually listening to them as well, you know, and benefiting, you're both benefiting the conversation. You listen, then they listen, then you listen, then they listen. And you sometimes fight and have conflict to get to the same plane. But if you're both in it to get to the same plane, then it always works out. But if you are engaging with someone who's unsafe and doesn't have any boundaries, and you have to understand that you are nothing more than a tool to them. They see you as like a fork or a hammer or whatever to get something, and all they will do is suck that oxygen out, and they will take that flame, and they will attempt to take that flame and use it as a blowtorch to get what they want. You really need to be aware of that. So that's just my thing on conversations and Jordan Peterson thing. And yeah, I love you guys so much, and I'll talk to you like, yeah, like the Jordan Peterson, Kathy Newman. That's the situation where you got to know how to fight. You know what I mean? Where that's your job or whatever and stuff like that. But, oh, my battery's dying. All right, I love you guys. Oh, that really hurt. Okay, I can't move. I love you. I'll talk to you later. Bye.